I'm going to be doing a testing protocol on this DSi XL. I have it in my area where I do final testing, so we'll see if this will actually be the final test, but this will at least be the third test that I run. I do have that as I have cleared it through 2 tests. It looks like it did fail test 1, had problems reading 1 game card, which, I mean, I'll get to that test a little later, but I have a stack of shovelware games that I use to check the game card slot, and if one of my, I don't know how many cards these are, 15-ish cards fail, I think that's a pretty good success rate overall. Those game cards are all in different conditions, hopefully to try and sample like every card condition of normal use, more or less. Sort of get sort of a baseline average that if it can read all of those cards just fine, it should have no problem reading any game card, save for ones that are heavily water damaged, but those are kind of fringe cases. So what I'm going to start doing, well, what I'll have to start by doing is putting on a screen protector, which is always the part I don't really like, but has to be done. Looks like this is using an aftermarket digitizer. I don't remember if I noted that. I probably did. And yep, new digitizer. Check game card. And yeah, trouble reading one of the games. Dog Whisperer. So let's get the screen protector on. My wet wipes have since gone dry, so I gotta wet them with my own alcohol. I do kind of notice a sort of a weird line underneath the digitizer. I don't know if it'll show up. Yeah, kinda. Looks like a very, very mild smudge. I just kind of catch it in the light every once in a while. I was wondering what that was. I'm usually pretty careful when putting on digitizers, but, well, I'm only human. It's not that bad. Not bad enough that I'm going to try and lift up the digitizer to try and get rid of it. Usually my parameters is if there's anything in between the digitizer and the LCD that block a pixel or distort it in any way, that's when I'll take action to try and get rid of it. But if I can't see it when the console's on, I usually don't worry about it. I'm in a rather dusty environment, so it can be sort of a fool's errand to try and get rid of all the dust. I just end up inviting more dust in, and I just have to sort of pick the lesser of two evils. Like whether of if I have all the dust out that blocks pixels, that's good enough for me. Because I'm never going to get all of it out. As much as I'd like, I don't really have a clean room setting. There is a method to my madness. A lot of it is just hope and a prayer that it goes on all right. Looks like this one went on pretty good, thankfully. The bottom screen ones are kind of high risk, high reward. The bezel makes it really hard to reposition because I can't really get under the screen protector without damaging it. It's plastic, so it kind of what would be the word? Since it's plastic, it kind of deforms and bends easily. And if you create a bend, then it renders that corner just always up, folded up, kind of like a fraying carpet. So this one did all right. I didn't really put enough force in when I initially started putting it in, so it's just a bunch of bubbles I gotta work out. Yeah, cool. That one went in really nicely. Now, the one I usually don't have problems with, the top screen, I have been having problems with the last couple times. I think I just underestimate how big it is. Alright, that one went on pretty good too. I thought I put it on an angle, but it looks like it went on straight. Perfect. Because usually once I put these on, I have to commit. Bubble might be a little stubborn. You may have gotten it, okay. Ooh, purdy. I do notice, like, kind of smudging. I'm guessing I had this lens off to clean underneath it. And it's just possible, just in the attempts of cleaning underneath the lens, just smudging it. It's not bad. Not even... I just notice it when it passes through the light. But I probably had to get dust or debris out from underneath it. And that's just kind of the process of rubbing it with a microfiber cloth or with Q-tips. Looks more like microfiber cloth. Let me get my area cleaned up a little. Then we can start doing the actual assessment here. So I have my little paperwork here. I'm just going to start filling out the stuff on the top. And then I also need to take off the bottom shell to confirm the serial number of the motherboard. So this is a blue DSi-XL running version 1.4.3U. I'll just confirm that before I write that down because I'm writing in pen and I'd rather not have to try and erase that. I say that as I'm just sort of writing down the serial number without confirming it. The shell serial number. Okay, that is correct. Battery life, 4 hours and 35 minutes. That is very good. Very good. I think the highest I've seen is 4 hours and 50 minutes. I only run the battery test once. It's not an average. It would just take way too long to run an average. And I really don't like putting too much stress on the batteries and the console if I don't need to. And though the average might give me a more realistic reading, it would also be under test conditions and not really applicable to real life, so to speak. Unless you like playing Battery Tester the game, which I suppose everybody has their own thing. Get the bottom shell out, confirm the serial number of the motherboard. I'll confirm that with my digital documentation as well. See if there's anything of note that I need to either be aware of or write down. I do need to get a stylus for this console. I'm gonna grab one real quick before I get too far because I don't want to forget. Well, I won't forget, but it'd be one less thing I need to worry about. So I just have a bunch of aftermarket third-party styluses that work just fine. They slide in, they don't get stuck. They do the job. I'm personally a fan of the big fat styluses, but alright. Nice and clean. Let me get the motherboard serial number here. And I take all these serial numbers just more or less for inventory. Just so I can keep track of if I need to do any repairs on this motherboard, I'll know what repairs have been done to it, what motherboards I have left, what language or region they come from. Because as far as I know, there's no other like indicator that will tell me this is like a US region board or a Japanese board. They all cosmetically are the same. Obviously, there's not going to be Japanese resistors. Okay, so let me check my digital records. So assembled. This is blue. I'm gonna go off the shell serial number. A whole bunch of 4s. Having 4 4s in the serial number makes it very easy to keep track of. Confirm that my motherboard serial number is the same. All I have is no known issues, so everything on this board checked out. Fantastic. Now what I'm going to do is rearrange some stuff up here. I'm going to put a little piece of tape over the backlight connector and the touchscreen connector. Nintendo has tape over those out of the factory. For reasons I can only really speculate. But those are the only 2 connectors that have tape over them. My best guess is maybe in like stress testing they found that that connector had a chance of dislodging or popping open. Like let's say if you dropped the console, it might pop the connector open, and well, without the backlight the console won't turn on. Without the touchscreen, well, you won't have a touchscreen. And they probably just didn't. They probably felt that spending the extra fraction of a penny to put in just a little bit of tape over is well worth trying to deal with the customer support or dealing with all the repair requests. Speculation, of course. I actually don't know. These connectors are pretty robust. Like they lock in there pretty good. So I don't know exactly what the issue is. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a benign thing to add. It's better safe than sorry. I'll get this back together, and then I'm going to do two kind of strange tests. I usually do these during the first round of testing. I didn't make note of it, so I'm just going to do them again just in case. It's just something I kind of failed to write down because it is a test I only need to do once. But I suppose it's best to do a test a few times. I do want to just look at the screen, see if I see any pieces of dust blocking any pixel. There is like a little hair. A lot of this surface dust is actually just surface dust, but there is a hair right there that's underneath the screen lens, so I just want to make sure it doesn't block any pixels. If it does, I'll have to take the lens off and try and shoo it away. No, I don't see anything. Alright, so the first test I need to perform of one of my odd tests is to confirm whether or not the console will go into sleep. I had a console that didn't go into sleep. Instead, it would sort of erratically flicker in and out of sleep, which was something I've never seen before. Oh, batteries, or the magnet's upside down. So I put a magnet there. There's a magnetically sensitive component right there that usually is fed off by the speaker. What this will do is put the console into sleep. Screen's darken, don't hear anything out the speakers, and the power light sort of breathes in and out. Remove the magnet, and it comes back on. The next one is for image retention, which what I'll do is just sit it on the DSI sounds menu for a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes-ish sort of time period. And then what I'm going to do is swap over to the settings menu, which is appear two black screens essentially. What I'm going to be looking for is this checkered pattern on either of the screens, as well as these big, large buttons. From the best that I was able to determine, something about the LCDs, I don't know if it's just them failing, because these things are a decade old. Maybe something about them failing, they retain an image almost not too dissimilar to like OLED burn-in. I can't really describe the phenomenon. Well, I can describe the phenomenon. I don't know why it happens on LCD displays, because as far as I knew up until this point, it wasn't supposed to happen to LCD displays. But I have caught it on a few different displays that retain an image, and I don't exactly know the cause, but currently I chalk it up to just age. So I'll just let them sit here and just sort of, I don't know, wait. I'll give it maybe another 20 seconds. And it's somewhat clear that my microphone works. It's responding to me talking. But I'll test that later. Getting a little distracted checking my email. Alright, so now quickly swap over to the settings menu. Okay, and they both look good. So there is sort of, you can kind of tell there's like a little bit of shading on the left side of these buttons. As far as I know, that's normal. It's not as, like, it, when screens have really bad image retention, it is very obvious. Like, you'll see the checkered pattern in the back, and you'll see the two big buttons from the DSi sound menu. These I don't detect anything. And sort of what I've been doing recently is sort of observing how the soft resetting, what images sort of pop up when I soft reset it. That's just pressing the power button. Now for like a very faint moment, you can kind of see the edge of the button, the big button from the DSi sound menu, and I think on the top screen you can kind of catch a whiff of the checkerboarding. My understanding is that really doesn't mean anything, but I can't say I'm not concerned about it being early signs of these screens starting to fail. But I can't prove that. That's just baseless speculation. But for now, these screens work. They don't retain an image. They may never retain an image. They could retain an image in 5 years. It's impossible for me to say. But I just have to focus on what the condition is currently. Which, as far as I'm concerned, good. So now with those kind of weird tests out of the way, I can get to my normal test suite, which will be right down here. Ooh, I do want to confirm this version number real quick. It is 1.4.3. Okay. All right. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is go down this little list right here, starting with the motherboard and power board. Now, I've already confirmed that the motherboard and power board test is, does the console turn on? Does it make it to the DSi menu? Does it open up an application, settings, for example? Yes. That should be rather a redundant test because I wouldn't be doing a third round of testing if the thing didn't turn on, but it's something I like to just check off anyway. I think it's important to just be cognizant of it, I suppose. The next test is the tactile buttons. Those are all the face buttons and the two shoulder buttons. For that, I'll be using an R4 card with diagnosing software on it. And basically all the diagnosing software does is it lights up a little light corresponding to the button I press. Which is very helpful instead of trying to determine whether or not the button works in a game like Pokemon or Mario Kart. So, press each button, I don't know, 10 or so times. Face buttons I'm not worried about. Those are usually almost always fine. Sometimes the D-pad has problems, but usually if any of these face buttons have a problem, it's because of any type of water damage. Liquid being poured onto the console, getting in between the buttons and underneath to the motherboard. Now, the shoulder buttons are usually the problem children. I've been specifically having problems with the R button on a couple different consoles, so I'm going to be paying extra close attention. Pressing pretty much all over the button from the far edge to the center to the other far edge. Just making sure that it lines up. Okay. Ooh, shell didn't get settled. Or the shoulder button got caught in the shell a little. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that. Both shoulder buttons seem to work, respond in the ways that I expect. Next is touchscreen, so I'll be going into another homebrew application, which basically just turns the bottom screen into a sort of an uninterrupted sketchpad. So somewhat similar to Flipnote, but it doesn't have the little menu on the bottom corner. So what I'll do is draw a line around the perimeter. This is a brand new digitizer, so I don't expect it to be bad. So I did a line around the perimeter. What I'm looking for is sort of, well, I'm looking for dead zones. Like if I were to draw a line around the perimeter and there would just be like this jagged bubble, and it wouldn't respond to any inputs in here, then the touchscreen is damaged, faulty. But for now, it did a full perimeter, so I'll just do swirls. I'm just sort of looking for like erratic inputs. Which it looks like it's good. Next is speaker, microphone, and headphone jack. Now for that, I'll sort of combo that with the SD card test. I have a song loaded up on the SD card. And I reckon that if the DSi can read a song off of the SD card, that the SD card slot's fine, detects the card and reads data from it. So I'll listen to both speakers, and then grab some earbuds, and then check both earbuds. Alright, perfect. Both earbuds played, both speakers played. The volume buttons work. It's changing the volume down here. So that I technically didn't confirm the microphone, but as we were doing with the image retention, it was responding to my voice. La 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 la! And yeah, microphone works fine. When I'm first assembling these consoles, the microphone is one of the components I test beforehand, since I don't want to put the whole console together and find out the microphone's faulty, because then I would have to try and replace it. Either tear down the entire console again, or try to replace it with the console together, which runs the risk of damaging the display ribbons, which I do not want to do. Next is camera. I don't do anything crazy. I just do both cameras initialize and show a relatively clear screen. You can see the insulation on my ceiling, which is why I'm in a rather dusty environment. Just uncovered insulation like that is a haven for dust. Both cameras worked, showed a relatively clear image. It's good enough for me. Next is the charge port. So, let me plug in my little USB tester here. I'm going to check a couple things here. So I'll plug in the charger like normal. That's for the DS Lite. That's not going to help me. Oopsie, open up the camera. I'll plug it in like normal. The little software indicator is saying that it's charging. My voltmeter is saying it's pulling an amp draw. Drop my notes. I'll deal with that later. Now what I'll do, I'll close the console and then jiggle the charge port around. Now I'm just looking to see if that charge light ever blips out. Usually that's a pretty good indicator that the solder joints on the charge port are faulty or just cracked or broken. But it looks like this is good. Grab my notes. Okay. Next is the game card slot. So now we come to this stack of games I have right here on top of, right up here on the top of my little test mat here. So let me just sort of put them off to the side. So this one did note of having trouble reading one game. Caesar Milan's dog training, I think it was. So I'll pay special attention to that when I'm doing my test, but the testing will go, I'll insert the game normally. Game pops up. What I'll do is then I'll put a little bit of pressure on it and jiggle it from side to side. There's just a tiny bit of play in the game card slot. And then see if it cuts out or disconnects, even just for a fraction of a second. Which it doesn't look like it. And then I'll slowly increase the pressure until I hit the ejection point, which the game card slot will click. And I'll even go past the ejection point and just jiggling it from side to side the whole way, just to see if it ever disconnects. Game card's out right now, so it disconnects. And it reads it all the way down, eject it again. So it reads it the entire way. Trying to sort of create a fault, like trying to make it disconnect past the ejection point is sort of useless, even if it does disconnect past the ejection point. If you accidentally push the game card in past the ejection point, it's coming out anyway. So really anything beyond that is kind of useless. I just do it anyway, just to see how good the game card slot is. I figure if it can read a game past the ejection point, it's in really good shape. Then what I'll do is do some rather barbaric smacks on the back of the console, basically looking to see if the game card slot or game card will blip out, even again just for a fraction of a second, or if I dislodge the battery enough to where the console just shuts off. So it kind of pairs two tests in one. Game card doesn't blip out at all. That's a very good sign. And really, if it wasn't kind of too obvious, that's sort of to test what would happen if you were playing a game, close your console, throw it in a backpack, and then your console's banging around in your backpack or carrying case or whatever. Will the game card disconnect? And since this was the era of having manual saves over auto saves, that could mean the difference of losing your progress or having a bad time. I guess just losing your progress. So I'll just do that same test through all of my game cards here. Some game cards are in better shape than other, so I hope this represents a good average. That if a console can read all of the games, even if it has problems reading like one, I would say that is a good enough average to play every game. Because I'm going to imagine that most people who are wanting to play their physical games are in very good shape. I know one of these games had a good bout of corrosion on it, ate away one of the edges of the pins. I think that I'm trying to remember which game that was. I think that was the hamster game. So this one's, it's not really having a problem reading, it just that one time it didn't show up. Here it goes again. I don't know if I'm just inserting the game card too quickly. Yeah, if I do like a rapid eject and put it back in, to be honest, I actually don't know if that's normal behavior. That might be. That wouldn't really surprise me. That's not quite. Huh, okay. I am not able to make it disconnect. Otherwise, if I fully eject it and put it back in, it will sometimes not show up. I don't think that's a game card issue. Let me see what happens if I... That just might be a system level thing. Huh. I'll put this game off to the side. I'll test it a little later. Because that was not the game card I was having problems with. But it was reading... Once it sort of popped up in the menu itself, it read the game card just fine. So maybe just something about it quickly ejecting it and putting it back in just kind of made it freak out or something. Didn't initialize. Or however the sort of the software systems of the game console work. It's a little beyond my understanding. Because I've had no problems with any other game card. So here's the one that had a little bit of corrosion on it. Yeah, I see one of the edges of the pins. So I wouldn't say this is definitely not the worst case scenario. I don't have any game cards that are in that bad a shape. I think this is probably the worst. Oh. More organized tower. Okay, here's the one that it was having problems with, Dog Whisperer. I didn't know what it was having problems with, I just noted it was having issues. But it looks like it's doing okay. I'm not able to get it to disconnect. I'll just sort of test it a little more. Okay, I'm not able to get it to disconnect. I would say that when I did a cleaning pass on the game card slot, it solved that issue with that game card. Or maybe just the game card itself that needed cleaning. Hard to say. I'm pretty sure this game card's also in kind of rough shape. Ugh, not bad at all. Okay, so I'm gonna look at this card again. I think it was just the fact that I was just ejecting it too quickly. Because I'm not able to force it to disconnect, even as hard as I try. It's just when I eject it and put it in very quickly, sometimes it doesn't pop up. Trying to see if I can repeat that. And that is far from like normal use case. Huh. Well, now I'm not able to repeat it, so. Weird. Alright. I'll do a cleaning pass on the game card slot, but I'm gonna say it passes. That was a weird little quirk. I wasn't able to repeat it, and that is sort of beyond normal use case. I don't expect, because that would be a strange thing to be like, well, I wouldn't consider that faulty. That's just sort of a, like if you accidentally put in the game card slot too quickly and, or like ejected and put it back in several times quickly for whatever reason, and it doesn't read every like 1 in 10 times you do that. That just might be a quirk. So what I did is I dribbled some rubbing alcohol on the pins of this game card, and now I'm just sort of taking it in and out of the console to try and clean the pins. I definitely have had good success doing that, but it's definitely something you don't want to do with a game you care about. A lot of the times rubbing alcohol will get on the label. I haven't had any problems with the rubbing alcohol on the labels, but I would not try that with a Pokemon game, for instance. So let me review. This has passed all of my tests. All but one. One I can't test right now. So it's gone through all of these, passed. The last one is Wi-Fi, and it's basically, does the console connect to an access point? I can't connect it to my home Wi-Fi because the security or the banding is too new. So it just simply won't connect to it. However, it will connect to my phone. The problem is my phone is being used as my camera. My phone can go down to the 2.5 band, which I think my home internet's only a 5 and a 6. And my phone can do 5 or 2.5. It'll connect to my 2.5 band if I do open security. So I'll check that later. I'm just going to assume it passes. I've never had one fail, but it's something I check regardless. So let me sort of transfer some notes here. So I'll say it passes the third test. Just say on the third test it passes. New digitizer. New digi. So now I get to go to a condition assessment. So let me sort of get things out of my way here. Now the condition assessment, let me show that actually. That will be these sort of columns up here. These are all very subjective condition scores, just how I rate them, pointing out any sort of physical faults that I see. For that, I'm going to put on gloves and... oh god. You sit over here, stack of game cards. I thought I had a microfiber cloth kicking around here somewhere. It's not that green one. I guess I have to grab a new one. Like I need to buy some more. Alright, so what I'll do is grab a little bit of... Ooh, I am missing a step here. Let me put on the screw protectors, or the little screw covers. Okay. And there that is. So I just have a big pile of screw protectors I have in my pillbox. What I need is the blue, which I have plenty of. Maybe putting them all in here in just one big massive pile is not really a good idea, but it works. One more leg. Getting them all set up right now. They like to stick to each other, not really surprisingly. Alright, so what I like to do is get some Elmer's glue. And create just a tiny little impression on the top of these screws. Like, I'll sort of create like a little bubble on the end of the Elmer's glue and just sort of kiss the top of the screws with it. Just enough to leave a little bit of adhesive. It doesn't need to be too crazy. These screw protectors don't sort of deal with any mechanical stress. They're just there for looks, really, just to hide the screws. So they don't need to be held on that hard. I'm just trying not to deposit a huge glob of glue, then I gotta deal with it oozing out of the screw protector. But usually just enough to leave just a tiny bit of glue is enough. There's also, usually there's still adhesive on the back of the screw protectors from the adhesive that Nintendo uses, which is like a double-sided tape. The screw protector's a tiny bit damaged, but that sometimes happens when I try to remove them. A lot of the times they come out in good shape. There is kind of a directionality to these screw protectors. There's sort of a glossy side and a matte side. Other times the glossy side will have the adhesive on it. Sometimes the adhesive comes off. I do use rubbing alcohol to remove these things, so it's really not too surprising that the adhesive separates from the screw protectors. Which is kind of why I do the Elmer's glue. I just assume that none of them have adhesive, but a lot of the times they do. And then I'll just sort of take my plastic pry tool and just kind of press them in. Sort of also kind of center them if I need to. Okay. Now the rear screw protectors do somewhat experience some stress. I mean, they're the feet of the console, so they're going to be touching surfaces and rubbing against stuff, so I will put in a little more glue. Sort of blob in some glue. Again, a lot of the feet will still have their adhesive stickers on them, but this just helps hold them. These are usually big enough that I can put in by hand, but other times I like to sort of pivot on me. Right. I just kind of look at it at an angle to see if all the legs are kind of poking out at the same height, which they should be. They're all about the same worn level. So now, going back to what I was originally going to do, I'm going to put some distilled water on a microfiber cloth and then just give this thing a good wipe down. Get off all my fingerprints. Right here. Nothing too scientific, just sort of wet down the microfiber cloth. You can probably tell there's already some cosmetic faults, but I'll get to that. I won't try and hit the screw protectors too hard because they are still drying. I'll just give it a nice... Alright. And then I have my little green one, which I'll ship with the console because these microfiber cloths are a little... Well, they come with the console. Or they come with the screen protector. And I'll usually transport the consoles with the microfiber cloth in between them, kind of like that. I really don't have use to collect a bunch of small microfiber cloths, so I just sort of ship them as. Oh yeah, this one had the smudging underneath the lens, so I'll never get those smudges out. Okay, so now I'll get to the actual condition assessment here. So what I'll be looking for, let's sort of go down the list here. First is the physical condition of the shell. That is what exactly it sounds like. How's the shell? Obviously, off the bat, there are this pair of scratches. Come on, camera. There you go. Oh, camera. This well, I guess it's just one scratch right there. That one's pretty obvious. There's a little bit of scuffing right there. Scuffing. Sort of that line of wear right on the top. There's another good scratch right there. It's sort of what you would almost expect from just a glossy top shell. It isn't the worst I've seen, but it is far from perfect. It does have some very, very noticeable blemishes. Around the hinge looks pretty good. There is a little bit of sort of marking around the actual top of the console. Camera. Going around to the back. Looks good. Side of the console. Good. There's a little bit of marking there on the corner. There's a... I almost don't think it's worth mentioning. There's like a little bit... There's like a little mark right above where the... Or right below where the microphone port is. But I'm not worried too much about that. There's a pretty good gash right there, actually. Wow. Yeah, that's a gnarly gash. It's not, it hasn't punctured the shell, but it's a good gash. A little bit of wear there on the corner. The back also had some wear. There's a scratch right on the S. There's a pretty good indent right there. Just some marks on the back, just scratching. I think that's really about it. There are just some marks that will catch the light. Not perfect, but again, not the worst I've seen. The top screen... No, this screw protector was... Okay. That screw protector even down all the way? Okay, there we go, I guess. This screw protector is kind of lifting up on the corner. I'm going to try and hold it down. I mean... It's lifting up on the corner, but it's still doing the job. It shouldn't catch anything to fall out. It's still no, it's a little flat. I'm gonna remove it and put more glue on, because this will bother me. If I can get it up pretty easily. Try and do it with my plastic pry tool so I don't damage it. That looks a lot better already. Alright, it's not lifting on that corner, so I'm happy. Now I did notice that, or I did mention that the screw cover does have a little bit of damage right there. You can see where I poked my sewing needle in to try and take these off. That happens sometimes. But I'll get back to the shell. I include that as part of my hardware assessment, which I'll get to later. I see no damage on this face. There is a mark kind of right there above the power button. But there's no wear around the face buttons at all. So I would say this thing is, aside from pretty much all the damage on the top screen, that kind of gnarly gash right there, and a couple scratches on the back, I would say this thing is in very good shape. And, well, kind of the complications of these kind of tests is they're entirely subjective, and what I consider very good and bad is, or what I consider very good or good can be just whatever day I'm doing this on. but I think I'm good enough to call it very good. So, scratches on glossy, gashes on edge. With a gash on the edge and back, scratch on the S. Scratch on the S of DSI. And I think all the other marks are rather benign. Next is the physical condition of the hardware. This is the shoulder buttons, screw covers, face buttons. Shoulder buttons are in amazing shape. I did mention, again, that one screw cover does have that little puncture hole from where I put in the sewing needle. I try to avoid that, but other times it just happens. This one, I think, just has a little bit of dried glue coming out when I repositioned it. Picking a booger. Might be able to get those with it. It might be time for me to get new tweezers. Okay, there we go. I might try and rub it again. Just a little bit of my moist microfiber cloth. That looks better. And then, of course, there's the face buttons, which there's no scratching or nothing that I notice. And yeah, I did check the shoulder buttons, and then there's also the 2 volume buttons. It is a little discolored on the plus. I think there's just a little bit of wear. Almost doesn't come up very nicely, but a little bit. It looks like it maybe took a hit. So I'm also going to say very good just because of the screw protector, and I'll make note of the plus button. I probably spelt that wrong, but I don't care. Okay, physical condition of the screens. Now, these are the 2 displays. I'm basically looking for scratching. Now, I will mark the smudging. That is a little annoying, but I'm looking mainly for scratches. There are some very light scratches on the top screen. I don't even think I'll be able to even get those to come up. And the bottom screen's a brand new digitizer, so it's scratch free. I will put that as very good though. Unfortunately, it is not perfect. Smudging under top lens. And there's that weird sort of vertical smudge. I'll just call it a smudge. Other than that, I don't detect any, like, crazy scratches. Like, it's really hard to even see those scratches on the top screen. Like, I have to kind of hold it at, like, a very specific angle. Alright, so next is the screen condition. Now, those are the actual displays themselves. Again, very highly subjective, but I feel like I've looked at enough of these screens that I kind of know what I'm looking at. So what I'm looking for is color. I'm looking at the edges to detect any yellowing. And I think these screens are perfect. Nice. They're at least perfectly matched. Like, I don't detect any variance between them, at least as so far as I can see. So I'm very pleased with that. Those are good screens. So that will be excellent. I do have to remember to take out my SD card. I don't want that going anywhere. So let's tally it up here. So we have very good, very good, very good, and an excellent. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. A 9 puts it in the solid very good category, right in the center of very good. This is, I will review it for today. Approved by me. Look at me go. All right. So now what I'm going to do is get the condition or the shorter condition assessment video where I do sort of a rundown of that condition scoring I just did, just in a more condensed format. And I will get this thing up for sale. Very good.